Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here again in another EAGE Local Chapter Netherlands event live in TUDelft. Yes, today we are going to have an event on reservoir monitoring with Wen Zhou, our presenter. But first, I'm going to give a brief introduction. So I'm going to talk a bit about the EAGE community, our Local Chapter Netherlands board, and then we're going to present the speaker, the technical talk, and after the talk, I'm gonna give some acknowledgements. So about EAGE, yes, EAGE is a non-profit association for geoscientists and engineers. It provides a global network of commercial and academic professionals with approximately 20,000 members, and it operates in oil and gas, energy transition, and near surface. And EAGE supports technical communities like our local chapter. So please consider having a membership or renewing it if you haven't done it yet, because you can get benefits from it, like the hardship program and support to attend EAGE courses and to attend EAGE events online and in person, including the annual conference or other EAGE conferences. And yeah, you can also apply for grants and other support. So this is our current board. We have, well, me as a president, Yuri here as our vice president, and other members of our board are Elin Levenberg, that is our secretary, and Professor Everslow, that is our membership officer, Chris Bremen, that they are not here, but is our event manager. We also have Dr. Dongshan, that is our event assistant, and also Yono, our student coordinator, that is also over there, and Diego Robeta, that is our past president, who has been doing this for, well, since the EAGE local chapter started, and Rita as our vice president. As part of the local chapter, we collaborate with other local chapters, like in Germany, Paris, Oslo, and London, and we also collaborate with several student chapters, like the Oslo Society of Exploration Geophysics, the DOGS, that are the local chapter of Delft, and also the local chapter, the student chapter of EAGE. You can contact or get in touch or get all the information of our local chapter through our social media, LinkedIn, or also through our email. But also you can get information of the other local chapters, also LinkedIn or by email. And we are always looking for people that can help us to organize events or in general with the local chapter. So if you're interested, please contact us. And also if you have ideas for future events or topics that you are interested in and you would like to see in future events, you can also send us an email and let us know. And please visit also our website, where you can find all the information for future events as well, and also for past events, and you can also get the links to recorded past events that are in YouTube. So yeah, this is today's agenda. I give a brief welcome and introduction. Now we're going to have our technical talk entitled Seismic Velocity Changes in the Groningen reservoir associated with distant drilling by Dr. Wen Zhou. And then we are going to have time for Q&A and discussion. And after that, we are going to have also more time for networking and have some more drinks and snacks on the back. So yes, now I'm going to welcome Dongshan, that he's going to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Flor. I'm honored to invite Dr. Wen Zhou to present here today for the EAGE Local Chapter. And he's a seismologist and postdoc at TUDelft, and he received his PhD in 2020 from Utrecht University, where he worked on borehole passive seismic monitoring and applied to the Groningen gas field. He also hold a postdoctoral position at KNMI and the University of Bristol, where he worked on CO2 storage monitoring projects using seismic noise interferometries. Now we welcome Dr. Zhou. The floor is yours.
So my name is Wen Zhou. As I don't have introduced me, I graduated 2 years ago in University of Utrecht, where I worked with Groningen postdoc. The topic of the today is part of the PhD thesis actually. So we use the borehole passive seismic data to look at the seismic velocity changes in the reservoir of Groningen. And we found interesting phenomenon that is related to the drilling, which is a few kilometers away. But before I go to introduce the phenomenon, first I'd like to introduce a bit of concept of induced seismicity. When we talk about induced seismicity, we're probably immediately thinking about pressure increase and then the normal stress, effective normal stress decrease and the fault slips, which is a very classical model to explain induced seismicity. And so when we talk about migration of microseismicity, which means the pattern of the doors growing in space, we immediately think about the model of the Shapiro model, which is so in this model, you see the x-axis is the time and y-axis is the distance. You see the continuous increasing of the seismic events from the injection point. So basically it's grow continuously. But we have also seen many examples with the events are not continuous growing. For example, this geothermal field in Strasbourg in France, where the north part of the seismicity is clearly associated with geothermal activity, which the red color means the production well, which produce heat, and blue color means injection well, which pumps cold water. But 4 kilometers to 5 kilometers away in the south, there's also a cluster of events, which we don't see anything in between. If we go back to more close to Netherlands, then in Groningen in 2009, there was a drilling took place, and in the south of the Groningen is one of the well called EAGE. When they drilled to the top of the reservoir, there was mud losses, and after 3 days after mud losses, we start seeing earthquakes happen, and 4 to 5 kilometers away again. But there's nothing in between, and even no single event close to the borehole, which was drilling. So what mechanisms? When we're talking about mechanisms of induced seismicity, there are 3 popular mechanisms. First, the pressure diffusion, and which we saw before. And second one is it's a pro-elastic effect. When you pump pressure, when you increase the pressure in the reservoir, you also change the loading surround the reservoir, which might trigger events which is away from your injection point. There's another mechanism which is when the injection changes the fault, and the fault actually sleeps, but it sleeps very slow, so it does not generate seismic wave, so we don't hear it or don't measure it. So this the second and third models are more popular in explaining these events which are distantly triggered. But in order to really understand what is going on in the reservoir, we think it's better to really monitor the pressure in the reservoir. And as seismologists, we immediately thinking can using seismic wave to measure the pressure changes in the reservoir. So, but we use seismic waves, then what kind of signal we might get? So we think we make a seismic wave velocity changes, attenuation might changes, or this seismic property we can measure. And perfect data we can use is instead of using the acquisition on the surface, it's better to use institute measurement, which is directly in the borehole. So we get we're lucky to get the borehole data from Groningen in the SM1 well. So later I'm going to introduce you how do we use this borehole data to how to use ambient noise interferometry and how to get the P and S wave velocity and velocity variations. And then we will talk about the phenomenon when we see in this study, which is associated with the distant drilling. First, a little bit of the background of the data set. It was in 2013 and 2015. So in the well SM1, there was 10 geophones located penetrating to the reservoir. The green color is the reservoir. The geophone is from the top of the reservoir to the bottom. It was three components geophones recorded continuously and 2 kilohertz. So without any doubt, we first applied noise interferometry because it's continuous data and the data volume is so big, and we don't have active shocks there. So the method is very simple. When we assume the noise is homogeneously distributed, we can apply cross correlation or deconvolution of between every 2 recordings. Then we get the impulse response from one to another. So I'm not going to get too detailed about that, but just apply the method. Here I show an example when we use top geophone as reference, then a cross correlation, calculating cross correlation with each of the others. Then the first panel you see is the autocorrelation, which is at 0 time, which is obvious. And later you see, oh, I'm sorry for it seems the X and Y labels are gone. But anyway, so this one is 0 time, and this is a positive, and this is a negative. So we get both for the vertical component and the horizontal component only signal in the positive part. So also touch screen. Also, by looking at the apparent velocity of these two, we can see that that the vertical component was dominantly recording P wave, and the horizontal component was dominantly recording S wave. And there should also be some. The velocity of the S wave is about 2,000 kilometers, 2,000 meters per second, and the P wave is about 4,000 meters per second, which fits the well law quite well. But we don't want just to get the velocity model. We want to see changes. We want to see, because we want to see the pressure changes. So we went to look at how stable this measurement is, and then we see quite clearly a day and night variation in the cross correlation. So we see during the weekdays, from Monday to Friday, the noise is quite strong, and the amplitude of cross correlation was also strong. But on Saturday, especially on Sunday, it's very quiet. So when people go to church, then there's not much activity probably. But another point is, if we use this one, is we calculate and we take the peaks of each of the cross correlation, then and we calculate the PDF. We see it's quite narrow, but it's still quite scattered. If we want to use this one to monitor, to calculate the velocity, then we get uncertainty of 5% for the P and even 10% for the S wave. So And it's quite good, but it's still not good enough if we want to see the changes in the reservoir or see the pressure changes. So we went back into the noise data to see if we can find a repeative signal there. We were lucky enough to find these repeative patterns. Can you see that? Also, we've seen, of course, quite large amplitude from 5 to 30 hertz during the day, but we see quite repeative patterns from like 30 to 90 hertz, or even 100 hertz. When we look at details, we see there actually is trains passing from one of the station to another. And the distance from the well to the railway is over 500 meters. So let's go to have a look at how details of how the signal looks like when we zoom in to this train signal. So we see clearly that from 30 to 100 hertz there is a clear pattern of signal. So in this panel you see the increasing of frequency with time, which means the train was actually accelerating. And when the train is approaching the station, it's deaccelerating. So like that. So apparently the signal generates here is probably correlated how the wheel was rotating. And also we see if we look at the time, now look at the time domain, we see quite a lot of signal in this part. So if we only use this part of signal, which probably the train was closest to the borehole, we might get better signal. So what I did is I count these 20 seconds when the amplitude is highest, and then I only use that to calculate cross correlation. What I get is now of horizontal component we are seeing is with one train there is a clear downgoing P wave. Of course, now the frequency is much higher compared to previous because a signal only starts from 30 hertz, so we're missing the low frequency part. But then if I stack like 60 trains, and I get the result which is showing in black color. And if I stack 9,000 trains and the entire data set I have, you see they're barely where they are. You can barely identify from their distance. I can see some difference from here. That means these train signals are very stable, and we can probably use that to monitor the reservoir changes. So we're very excited in that point. So if I use that data to calculate the velocity, and now I'm plotting the P and the S wave velocity together with the uncertainty. The uncertainty is in dash line. You probably don't see it. So the conclusion here is we use the train signal itself, repetitive trains, to calculate the very high resolution P and S velocity. And when we're comparing the result with the well log, we see our velocity is probably a little bit lower than the well log. This is also not intuitively understand it because we're expecting our measurement should be always higher than the true velocity because we're always measuring some apparent velocity. So it's always higher than the true. But when the velocity here is lower than the well log, we're thinking maybe that our measurement is sampling a larger area, while the well log is sampling very close to the well. Although the well log was taken like 60 years ago, while the borehole, while our measurement was very recent. So talking just so far, where is the distant drilling? So the distant drilling comes when we look at the, so if I go back to 2 slides, when we look at the variation on the very bottom geophone. As a function of time, we see this is half a year. The first half year, there's nothing changed. And second half year, start from mid of July, there is a decrease of travel time, and the beginning of September, everything go back to normal again. When I pick all the when I pick the peaks, and plot it as a function, so plot it as a dot and the function of time, you probably see this pattern even clear. So and again, yeah, but the travel time decrease from June and go back to normal in September. So what would that be? And it took me 3 years to understand this. And here one day I talked with my colleague in the laboratory, and they say they have the core from this borehole, the rock core, and they say, "Hey, the timing of this observation is correlated. It's very similar to when they were drilling." So I went to check the drill report. Is actually then I found a really good correlation. In 13th of July, the first reached the borehole, reached the reservoir. Then a few days later, I see the travel time changes, and the end of August, they reached the bottom of the borehole. First, travel time changes. When they left when the cement the borehole and left the well, everything goes back to normal. So now in this plot, in this week I plot the travel time changes as a dot, and the black, those are the average of every day. And the red curve shows the bottom hole pressure, which is simply calculating by the density of the mud and the height of the well. Then you see the blue dashed line here is when they reach the wall, when they reach when the drilling reached the reservoir. And 4 days later, we see the decrease of travel time. And another 2 days, there was a mud loss. So the mud loss actually after the measurement, we will measure the travel time. So if you look at the end of the anomaly, the blue dashed line shows when the cement job was finished and they left the well, and the green curve shows when the anomaly go back to normal. And both of this has 4 days of delay, which probably showing that this is not a coincidence. And if we look at the middle part of the plot, you see that when the red curve increase and the pressure increase, we have a decrease of travel time. This further confirms that these two phenomena might be correlated. So before I go to interpretation of that, so what we have shown are all P wave. Can we have better, more data to confirm that this observation is real, is not artifact? So we want to see if we can measure S wave. But the trains, they are very good P wave source. They don't generate so much S wave. But anyway, is there are also S wave recorded on the horizontal component. It's a better way to retrieve this S wave component, S wave from the horizontal component. So we sort of receive function, which is very popular in seismology community. And I first demonstrate how that works. So in this plot, you see a synthetic seismogram recorded from surface to the borehole. When I put one active source on surface, and then generate source propagate along the median, which is with a realistic velocity model from Groningen. So this is the vertical component of the synthetic data. You see the P wave dominated the horizontal, the vertical component. If we go to the horizontal component, we're seeing that after the direct P wave, there are tails there, and that is the conversion from P to S. So it's if we can, but then this is the synthetic, or this synthetic when we have an impulse source. But the data we have is noise, and we have train noise, which means we cannot identify this from the data itself. So what we did is we apply a deconvolution. So which we deconvolve the horizontal component by the vertical component, which apparently shifts all the P wave energy to the 0 time and left all the P to S conversions to the later reverse. So when it goes down, it is a transmission from P to S. When it goes up, it's a refraction from refracted S wave. And now we have, because we already have data reported in the reservoir in this area. So, but as you see from synthetic, then we can measure all the S waves. So this is what we did. We apply the deconvolution. We call it HC decon. The H stands for horizontal, therefore for Z component. And we do see that in the real data, there is a clear downgoing S wave, P to S conversions, let's say. And the first one is the direct from the top of the reservoir, and we also see many other conversions from the overburden. If I now look at the travel time, look at the changes, sorry. If I look at the changes of this channel again, so this is what you see, the very colorful figure here. You see the P wave does not change, it's almost constant, and the S wave has a significant, not as significant as before, but it still can see the trend of changes. Now, if I plot again instead of plotting the entire figures, I just plot the highest amplitude. Then we can get during this period the largest S wave P to S changes is about 1 second, 1 millisecond, because this one is not the exactly S wave, is actually P to S subtracting the P wave. So we need to we want to get the S wave change. We need to subtracting the P wave changes, because we know the P wave change is about and the maximum point is about 0.7 milliseconds. We can calculate the S wave changes about 0.3 milliseconds, which is understandable. But we will talk about, we will go to that later. Why the P wave velocity increase and S wave decrease. Another phenomenon we see is during this period, the noise, the ambient noise from 5 to 30 hertz has significantly dropped on the geophone, on the bottom geophone. But on one level above it, there's not much changes except the day and night and week variation. So we think all of these are related to the gas-water contact. So when the gas-water contact moves up, the P wave increase, and because the water replacing the gas, then the S wave S wave velocity will actually decrease because the density increase and the shell modular probably does not change. So if I plot the wheel log, I see above the gas-water contact, if I calculate the average and velocity, and below the gas-water contact, and we can have an average velocity, then they are significantly different between these two. That means that means if we shift the gas-water contact, we might explain this. So, but the problem is the draining was here, and the observation is here, which is 5 kilometers away. How do we expand this connection? So with the 4 days delay, we can calculate the diffusivity of the pressure is about 5 meters square per second, and we get a permeability of 180 millidarcy, which is a reasonable value comparing to the literature which we have found. It's still hard to imagine that the reservoir is overall with such a high permeability. So we come up with an explanation that between these two wells, there might be a fault which is connecting, and the pressure diffuse through this fault reaches our observation well, and 4 days later. I'll come to the last slide. Then we, if our hypothesis of explaining is true, that the pressure in the draining pressure increase in the draining well propagates through the fault and reaches our observation well, then we have a problem that because we don't see any induced seismicity in this region, in this town, in this area. So what do we see is probably the fault, if probably the fault is not critically stressed, and then indicating that some of the faults in the Groningen is not critically stressed, and the credibility of the in Groningen is heterogeneous. And we probably provide also an explanation to this distant triggering event that they don't necessarily to need elastic pro-elastic effect or seismic slip. Just with the pressure diffusion, we can also explain it. Just with adding some heterogeneity on the fault. If part of the fault is critically stressed, part of the fault is not, then we can it still triggers events which are distant. So take home message here is first we use trains to measure the P wave velocity, and we use the edge as the decon to get the S wave relating to the P wave, and we can get the travel changes there. And we found this significant change of travel time, which is relating to the drilling. And we also found the ambient noise level was also changed. We interpret this observation with pressure diffusion with 5 meters square per second diffusivity, and because we don't see any induced seismicity in this period, we interpret that the fault transmitting the pressure was not critically stressed. Thanks. That's for my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for a very interesting talk. My name is Wen Zhou, also from TUDelft. I have a question about the VSP that you created by cross correlation. Can you show them again?
Yeah. When you say where
this one. Yeah. So you are correlating the other ones with the top one.
Yes.
But you could also do it any other combination. You could also start from the bottom and work your way up, or combine everything, or what would be a best practice in this?
You can do, you can have both combinations, indeed. That was what we did when we have this measurement. When the noise level is so high, we try to get as much measurement as possible, so we use each of them as a reference. But when we go to this one, because the data is so good, I didn't try that approach. Just use the first one.
And is the noise expected to come just from above, basically, because the train is at a distance of 500 meters, so it comes basically under an angle.
But the borehole is already the geophones are at 3 kilometers. 3 kilometers depth.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost vertical.
So it's almost vertical.
Yeah. With using different combination of water sources, I can calculate the velocity. Yeah, that's what we did. But then to calculate just to get the actually this one was only really using geophone 8 to 10. So it's not always using their top geophone as a water source. It's so this is the conversion from geophone 10 to 8. Yeah, it's really using.
Okay, and then you calculate just the delta T between those two channels only.
Yeah.
Software. I saw your slide about the possible east-west orientation fault.
Yeah.
Not really a question, but I did the extraction of fault for the open. Faults coming from the dynamic model, right?
Yeah.
So those are probably larger scale faults.
To see that we use this fault model from that. This is just the reservoir model.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I missed one point because I was thinking of something else when you were presenting. So you said that the P wave velocity went up and the S wave velocity went down in that special period.
Yeah.
What was the reason for that? Because I think I missed it.
Yeah, I didn't explain so clearly. Sorry, it was my fault. Because when the water level of the ground borehole increased, of that volume, it was said. But the bulk not really increased. Actually, a period ago.
Okay, I find it quite interesting. Question about is because you can use it to model these in subsurface probably.
Yeah, but I think we can also. The observation is also quite coincident, I think I would say, because it needs these two wells are both close to faults, which are connected.
So we need to build.
Also, yeah. Also, you also need to change close to the borehole. So it's quite a lot of coincidence there. But the main message I think from here is the train is all one repeat source, but there are also maybe other repeat sources. If that is not possible, we might bring active source somewhere. But the main message is to monitor the rate in seismic wave. That is possible, and also is it is important to monitor. It was drilling because when we're talking about the oil companies, they don't expect anything happen. We see quite significant changes in the reservoir and such a large distance.
Is also basically on only one side of the well.
Yeah.
Easier if you would have side as well.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. That's that's really if there's tracks there, or if we can have if the trains are stronger, then also be if the trains are stronger, then we generate signal from here may also be recorded. Then I can separate it. But in this setting, most of the energy are coming from very close to this point. I tried with the distant window when the train was not so close, then the result was not so good. Also, the energy was generating from here.
You do organize a race.
And yes, thanks again. So, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, so thanks again, Dr. Wen Zhou, for your presentation and for your time. I would also like to thank TUDelft for providing the venue for this event, and also the Delphi Consortium for sponsoring the event, and of course all of you for coming here participating.